Because every time a woman came on the show, at the end of it, she would say, 1, I didn't know I had a story to tell, and you helped me feel like I did. And 2, I did not expect to say that. And every single time, they were happy to leave it in there. They weren't like, I didn't mean to say that, take it out. They were proud that their story was out there. In 2020, I very much had the stereotypical it all. I had a wonderful husband, a beautiful home. I was the breadwinner in my family, and I was 6 months postpartum. And I was driving home and wanted to drive my car off the road. This moment for me, obviously when something like that happened, is sobering no matter what. But there were 3 things that went through my mind. Is 1, being able to say fuck it all, leave a situation is a privilege. So many of us think it, but few of us have the ability to act on it. 2, if I didn't have, the system, the support, the friends, education, access that I did, then I don't know where I would be. And finally, I had a daughter. And if this was her definition of success, if this is what she was defining it all, I would have felt like I failed her as a parent. And so this started because it was a forced way of living my values. We joke, I was supposed to take 12 weeks off. I took about 6 days and I started what, was a creative project. Katie was an inspiration, and I wanted to talk to women who had experienced moments of redefinition. And for me, I felt like a failure. But so many of these women, I saw them stepping into their power, and I was just so hungry for these stories. In a week, what started out as 10 stories became a backlog of 100, and the momentum was there. I knew there was something special. The beautiful thing about our friendship is we've always had, despite being in different places, both physically as well as, on paper where we were emotionally and spiritually, I felt like we were always
aligned,
super aligned. And I don't want to tell your story, you say it. You had gotten onto this long-term relationship, and that to me is I just watched you handle it in your power.
Yeah, so I had been in a long-term relationship, living in the Southeast, I think trying to fit into a story that wasn't mine. And so when the relationship ended, for me, it was kind of being set free. And so I moved to Thailand. I had wanted to leave for about 2 years, and being in the social impact
country,
space.
not the relationship.
Yes, the country, not the relationship. And I was kind of excited to learn a new skill set, and so went international, and I'd lived internationally before, and I just know this about myself, it really helps me step into my power. And so bought a plane ticket, packed up my life, moved within 3 weeks, and when I was there, I met this extraordinary community of women that really, they were like valued, they looked like me, and I just felt such a sense of community and empowerment. And then in moving back to the States during COVID, I fell right back into old stories, old narratives. Yeah. And so I moved to DC because it was a nonprofit hub, and that's, my business up until now and still kind of now, but.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. And anyway, I was searching for a job actively while living there, which was very difficult during COVID. And Kacie called me.
That's a story for another.
Yeah, for another time. But Kacie called me in January. She'd been doing the podcast for about 2 months, and hearing all the stories, she realized that she was she had a ton of data, like grounded theory research, about the systems that were broken through these women's stories, and they were telling them very vulnerably rather than telling them through a survey and we were witnessing the Great Resignation real time. So she called and said, I want you to build this business with me, and would you consider moving to Atlanta, moving into my carriage house in my backyard? Mind you, she had not told her husband that this was part of the plan yet. So she pitched this. Kacie's brilliant at sales. And so within the first 20 minutes of the call, I thought, oh shit, I'm gonna do this. So I was like, okay, let me just sit with this. I'll call you back. I took a walk across the city, and within 3 hours, I called her back and said, I'm in. I'm going to move to Atlanta. We went all in. We are neighbors. We are best friends. We are co-founders of a business together. We spend most every hour of every day
1000%.
Together. And
when we're not together, we're texting or calling.
Been the best decision.
The goal, again, it was a creative project. I wanted to have 10 stories, and that was just enough for me to say, okay, scratch that creative itch. You got, your own kind of therapy from this. And I reached out to my network, and in a week, there were 100 stories. women and men were coming forth so readily to say, you have to meet this person. And that to me felt like, okay, there's something here. This is like 10x what I had hoped. The other thing, Katie always jokes, we're PR's worst nightmare. Because every time a woman came on the show, at the end of it, she would say, 1, I didn't know I had a story to tell, and you helped me feel like I did. And 2, I did not expect to say that. And every single time, they were happy to leave it in there. They weren't like, I didn't mean to say that, take it out. They were proud that their story was out there. And that in itself, like, we look at all these, you know, kind of, not rags to riches, but like triumph stories.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to tell you after things are already really good. They're like, I'm amazing now, but like back then things were really fucked up. And I'm like, no, I need to know when you were like fetal position in the bathroom, like tell me when that. And we were able to get that. And so there was just, as we started to look out in the world, these stories weren't there in this way.
And then we started getting feedback as well that women were saying, I just want to jump into the conversation. I just want to be part of this, and I have so much to say. And we were getting like, when we would interview someone to share their fuck it all moment, they started calling and
we
like
were their first call.
Yeah, their first call when they had their next fuck it all moment, and they would call and say, I just want to tell you, I haven't told my family yet, I haven't told my best friends, but I just wanted to call you guys and say I'm going through it. Like when Kacie and I first sat down to talk about this business, we drew out literally the map of Disney. It was all the different components, and I think our vision from the very beginning has been huge. And I think at the beginning we kind of thought that we were going to be at the center of that, that it was something that we had to carry, but we've learned so much just in like a short year and a half. And now we feel like facilitators. We feel like walking with is one of our core values, and we are becoming like a support mechanism. So I want our language to be tools that women can use. I want them to be like everyday household things that they can use to help express what they're feeling and going through, and that we can connect women with each other. And that it's big enough that like those tools and resources are accessible no matter who you are or where you are in the world.
I'd love for fuck it all moments to not be a privilege.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah.